Empires rarely maintain control through force alone. Military power matters, economic control matters, but one of the most effective tools of governance is something far less visible: division. Across colonial Africa, European powers governed vast territories by managing rivalries and preventing unified resistance. In Nigeria, British policies would gradually deepen divisions whose consequences continue long after independence. The phrase "divide and rule" refers to a governing strategy in which authorities maintain power by preventing the emergence of unified opposition. Rather than creating a strong shared national identity, colonial systems often governed populations through fragmented regional structures and selective alliances. Different communities were administered differently. Different regions developed unevenly. Certain authorities were empowered while others were weakened. Unity became difficult because fragmentation was embedded in the system. In northern Nigeria, Britain relied heavily on indirect rule through existing emirate systems. Authorities governed through emirs rather than replacing them. This reduced costs and minimized resistance while maintaining order. But it also reinforced regional political separation. Northern governance evolved differently from the South. This contributed to distinct political trajectories within the colony itself. While the North preserved its structures, the South was changing rapidly. In many southern regions, missionary education expanded more rapidly. Western education became tied to political advancement, journalism, and law. A growing educated elite began to emerge. Newspapers, political activism, and constitutional debates expanded. But development remained uneven. By the mid-20th century, disparities in educational access had become politically significant. Colonial governance had created regions developing at different institutional speeds. As colonial administration evolved, political representation increasingly became tied to regional and ethnic structures. Rather than cultivating a deeply unified national political culture, colonial systems often reinforced regional identities as the basis for political organization. Nigerians increasingly viewed competition through ethnic lenses: North versus South, East versus West. Identity became linked to access to power. Colonial censuses, administrative divisions, and representation formulas sometimes intensified these tensions by turning population size and regional influence into political weapons. Identity became linked to access to power. Colonial systems also produced new political elites whose power depended upon cooperation with imperial structures. Access to influence flowed through colonial institutions. This created a political class positioned between imperial interests and the broader population. In many cases, colonial governance did not simply rule African societies. It reshaped internal power structures within them. By the approach of independence, Nigeria faced a challenge. How do you build national unity inside a structure designed for administration rather than nationhood? The colony contained immense diversity: languages, religions, and traditions. Diversity itself was not the problem. Many successful nations are diverse, but colonial governance had often institutionalized competition instead of building strong mechanisms for trust, inclusion, and shared identity. As nationalist movements expanded, leaders emerged demanding independence. But even then, regional political tensions remained visible. Different leaders envisioned different futures for the country. Regional parties grew powerful, and constitutional negotiations became increasingly complex. When Britain formally transferred power in 1960, Nigeria inherited far more than independence. It inherited borders and institutions created by empire. Regional inequalities and political rivalries were deeply embedded within the new nation. The colonial era was ending, but its structures remained. The years after independence would test whether Nigeria could overcome these divisions. Instead, political instability deepened and electoral crises emerged. Military intervention entered politics, and eventually, the country would descend into one of the most painful chapters in modern African history: civil war. History matters, because the foundations upon which nations are built often shape the crises they later endure. Nigerians themselves would make decisions, both wise and destructive. In the next episode, we examine the collapse of the First Republic, the rise of military coups, and the road toward the Nigerian Civil War.